Let's discuss the core connector development for an inbound transfer. So here we use the on-premise deploy repository to deploy a payment manager and testing toolkit. In this scenario, the payment manager here acts like a receiver, and the testing toolkit simulates the Mojaloop switch and sender FSP. So to test a transfer, we need to execute a test case in the testing toolkit. Then testing toolkit sends the FSP AOP requests like get parties, post codes, and post transfer to the payment manager. And the payment manager forwards those requests on a configured port on the core connector. Then core connector should respond for those API requests. So core connector can contact the core banking solution, and then when it gets a response from the core banking, and then the core connector responds with the corresponding response of that request, and the payment manager responds with the asynchronous HTTP callbacks to the testing toolkit. And then in the testing toolkit, we should see the test case result, the result of the transfer. So if the core connector is properly developed for the API endpoints, for the payment manager API specification endpoints, then we should get the transfer success as a result. So in this way, we can test the inbound functionality of the core connector and develop the same with the help of payment manager and the testing toolkit. So we're going to test an inbound transfer with the on-premise deploy. So this is the on-premise deploy repository. We can go to this section, sending a transfer to the core connector. So we can follow this section. I already ran the Docker Compose up. So on-premise deploy is already running on my machine. So I'm going to use testing toolkit UI to send a transfer from testing toolkit to the core connector. So by default, in this on-premise deploy, there are some core connector and core backend simulators. So when we execute a test case from testing toolkit, like sending a transfer from testing toolkit, we will get simulated responses. So for the core connector development, we just need to turn off those simulators, core backend and core connector simulators, and we can run the core connector as a separate application in our machine and point the payment manager to the running instance of the core connector. So that is for core connector development. Now let's see the test case execution with the simulated services. So yeah, this is the testing toolkit UI. It is running on localhost colon 6060, and we should go to test runner here. So there are instructions. Go to test runner and then collection manager. So I'm going to follow these instructions and run a test case. So in the test runner page, go to collection manager and then import the folder. So this is the collections folder inside the on-premise deploy. Let me go back. So this is on-premise deploy, testing toolkit folder, and then collections folder. So we can load the entire collections folder and see it is imported. Expand that. And there are two types of tests, payer test and payee test. So we should select payee test because the TTK Sorry, we are testing the payee side functionality. So select the payee test. So there are three HTTP requests: get parties, post quotes, and post transfers. So by executing this, TTK sends these requests to the payment manager, and the payment manager forwards that to the backend core connector, and core connector simulator responds with simulated responses. So let's execute this test case. Click on the run button here. And you can see the test case is passed. And also we can see the console log. So there are some logs here in the Docker Compose. Post transfers. Yeah. Let's see the results here. So all green. Click on the edit button here to see the requests and responses. These are three requests: get parties, post quotes, and post transfer, and we can observe each request. So we are in request tab, and this is the request. Let's see the response. This is the response. So 202 is the synchronous response, and this is the callback from the payment manager. So while developing core connector, if we implemented all the API handlers properly, then we should see this callback in the testing toolkit. If something wrong with the core connector or core backend, we will get error. The same way, this is the post quotes request from the testing toolkit to payment manager, and the payment manager responds with this response. 202 synchronous response, and the callback is put quotes callback. And same with the post transfers. This is the post transfer request, and this is the callback. And we can see the committed state. This is how we test the inbound functionality of a core connector.